paper. Sorry about that screen. We had a bit of a technical finagle, so we won't pay much attention to that. We'll just move on with the newspapers, guys. Thanks for being with us. Merry Christmas. Can you say that?
Yes, we can.
You can say that, can't you, on Boxing Day? Fine.
Yes.
So Merry Christmas. Oh, of course. And you're wearing the very festive jumper
and the earrings.
Lovely stuff.
And some elf-themed socks.
Excellent.
No one can see.
I don't have any of that.
No, I went for my normal attire. Right, let's crack on. We're going to look first here at the Daily Mirror. It's in all the newspapers, of course, the King's message to the nation. But you should take us through this.
Yes, we don't need a screen for this because everyone can imagine King Charles, who's much more dapper than me or any elf you can imagine. He gave his King's speech, the fourth speech that he's given in his present role yesterday at, I think it was 3 p.m. It felt like 3 a.m. because I ate so much Christmas food. And I really liked it because it stressed community, peace, reconciliation, talking to your neighbours, acceptance. It was very gentle, but as is very typical for Charles, intensely political at the same time.
Go on. In what way?
He's not supposed to make any kind of political reference, and yet he did talk about different faiths, different religions, different backgrounds. He talked about conflict and said that it must be a universal desire to not want conflict and to want peace and reconciliation. To me, that is typical of him, trying to be really political, but thinking, how can I lowball this in a gentle way? And I do think that the nation generally has a lot of affection for him because he's so human. His emotionality is always to the fore, in stark contrast to his mother. And so we accept that from him, where we wouldn't accept it from another royal. So I thought it was a job well done.
Well-delivered message. Claire?
It was, and I think it's really difficult these days to remove politics from any kind of conversation. So if you're going to talk about the story of the Bible, Jesus, Bethlehem, no room at the inn, there's always going to be a political undertone, given the circumstances that they found themselves in. So I think that's quite hard to do, but he does it in a way, I understand what you're saying. It's such a sort of quiet way. He needs to get a political point across. But I thought it was actually a really beautiful speech. I know there's an awful lot of criticism, talking about diversity, talking about conflicts, but I think we have to address those. You have to be able to have a conversation about what is going on in the world, what is going on in people's living rooms at that very moment. So I thought it was really beautifully done, slightly distracted by the fact that his jacket button was undone.
Oh, no.
And it's one of those small bits that you notice from time to time.
It can be. It just leads the eye away, doesn't it, slightly? But it looks like it's very nicely framed, and obviously the message was well received and important. Now, that was his message to the nation. He then was with the family at Sandringham for their traditional Christmas Day service, where we get to see all of them, but obviously one person very conspicuous by his absence.
Absolutely, but I think the younger royals are really stepping up to the mark at coming out and being the public face of the royal family. It was a beautiful day, and people queue overnight. They camp to wait to see a glimpse of the royals, and it's always really interesting when you get to see where people have come from. A lot of people coming over from America, Australia, New Zealand, to come and see the royal family. But I do think it's important that Princess Beatrice and Eugenie were there. They have had no part in what their father is alleged to have done. They are there in their own right, and they looked absolutely stunning on the day. And, of course, the smaller royals will always take the crown in this respect. I mean, Princess Charlotte looking absolutely stunning like her mother, and you've got George and Louis just wowing the crowd. And I think that's the really important message. These are the future of the royal family. These are the view of Great Britain that people have from abroad, and it's so very, very important. And it just seemed a happy occasion.
Yeah, I mean, the Times' headline, Andrew's daughters walk tall in a united front. I mean, one would imagine that they would have wanted to spend Christmas with the family despite what's going on with their father, but still, they have to make a personal decision there, don't they? Are they going to stay with him, or are they going to be with the rest of the clan? And they went with the clan. This
is an extraordinary position for them to be in, because on the one hand, the most lurid, awful and disturbing things are happening at the headlines level, but they're still at a personal level within a family. And then, exactly as you mentioned, there's the dimension of the royal family being like a living soap opera for other people to pay into. And they're completely innocent in all of this. This is the dilemma for them. They're two women in their 30s who've got their own lives and their own concerns, their own families, and they have to somehow satisfy every angle of all of this. But it's a lovely tradition. It's been going since 1870, since Queen Victoria's time. And there is an element of pageantry, but I do also think that they believe this. This is an important family ritual for them. Yeah. And it's somehow playing out in public at the same time. But that is part of their public role. They are expected to do it.
And of course, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor denies any allegations that he faces. Let's move on to the Daily Mail. Boxing Day sales, but perhaps not the headline that the Chancellor will have wanted. I don't know if anyone started their shopping yet. I know that I saw some people on some smartphones yesterday in my house. Wasn't too happy about. But take us through the reporting first of all, Badish, and then we'll talk about the sales.
Yeah, forget about all that Christmas Day celebration. Back to commerce and capitalism, which is what this fine country runs on. Rachel Reeves has been dragged into this because Reform and the Tories are saying that fewer people, a small percentage of people down from last year, 26 down from 28, are coming out today for their Boxing Day sales. And the opposition parties are saying this is a sign of a flatlining economy and collapsing consumer confidence, which is probably true, but I don't relate that to any one party, I have to say. Ever since the big retailers, whom we will not mention by name, came into the scene, fewer people have been going out onto the high street. Big chains have priced out local boutiques, so every high street in every major city looks exactly the same, and that's also true internationally. Yeah. That might be good for convenience's sake, but there's not a very big pull factor, and of course the convenience of online undercuts that desire to, if anyone did this in their teens, queue up outside Harrods or Harvey Nicks and then fight other people physically to get into the sales, and then you end up with like a fluffy scarf that you never wanted.
Badisha, you're telling us a lot about how many years did you do that?
It's a general theory.
Just happened to a friend of mine once.
Profoundly universal experience.
Having been to another shop in town doing the same sort of thing on that day, you know that feeling.
But I also think that people now shop very, very differently. I mean, we've been looking at the death of the high street for at least a decade, to my mind. But online shopping, the convenience of sitting there on your sofa in bed, scrolling through to get something delivered that you don't have to actually go out for. That's what we all do. We want the convenience. The prices are often better. And we just want it when we want it, how we want it. And then you can send it back if you don't like it. You don't have to go and argue with a receipt, with a customer service assistant somewhere. You just have to return it, put it in an envelope, and Bob's your uncle. But I do think that we are to blame as consumers. But I still think that people will go out, people like the fact that they gather around, friends especially, will go together as part of Boxing Day.
I was going to say, you do miss out on being with people when you're on your device trying to do your shopping, despite the queuing, despite the traffic getting in and out of the stores. It is more convenient, isn't it? Is there any detail here as to how much is expected to be spent online, though? Because I can see we're going to lose $1 billion for the high street, but is there any details as to how much is going to be actually spent over the next few?
No, but it's going to be a lot, because by Boxing Day, everyone's a little bit bored. They're completely eaten, they've drunk, they've had a family argument. What do? You admitted it yourself. You get on your phone and then you just see what's out there. And it's very easy to put stuff into the basket and spend.
It is.
Not that I've done that.
No.
Me neither. I don't know what they're talking about when they say that.
Wouldn't be me. All right, let's move on to this one then. Front of the Times, and thousands more homes to be hit by mansion tax. Take us through this reporting. Viewers, of course, will be aware that there were some changes in the budget. Is there further change?
It's sort of a little bit of the detail about how it's going to change and how these properties are going to be valued. And at the moment, we were unsure as to how you were going to get to a valuation of a £2 million property. Some people have bought them very cheap many years ago, which is of no fault of their own. But it looks like there's going to be another agency separate from the Valuation Office agency, which is what is used for council tax banding. And it seems like you'll be able to then put in a property and look at the area, look at the street and see how much a property is worth, which sounds good until you think there's an algorithm going to look at a street and say, OK, one property is worth 2 million. You could have another property at the end of the street that's $500,000. So how are you going to do that? How are they going to work that out? So I think there's going to be a problem with overvaluation, which is what the report in the Times is saying. You could have valuations overshooting by £30,000, which makes an awful lot of difference to somebody if they're going to start losing £2,500, £5,000 worth of tax.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch as to how they deal with this. And some properties have been developed. There are properties which are particularly unique. And how do you then put a valuation against that if it's up against a street of terraced houses, for example? So I think this is another one that's going to cause the government more headaches than it realised. It was a great headline for them, but there were quite a lot of us who were a little bit sceptical that it'll ever take flight.
Now, some of the detail here, in case viewers had forgotten, owners of homes valued at between 2 million and 2.5 million will pay an annual surcharge of £2,500, rising to £7,500 a year. Homes worth more than 5 million. I mean, I imagine many people will be thinking my home isn't worth anywhere near £2 million, so I'm not going to pay it.
That's true, but it's also true that you're going to have a lot of people in a certain generation, maybe whose parents were quite privileged or they inherited a little property, where if you add up the total amount of properties that they have, it does edge over that mark. And they don't see themselves as rich at all. They see themselves as very middle class and just incredibly lucky. And they're going to be hit by this surcharge, which is annual. So it's all going to be cumulative. And they are not the people who are so rich that this doesn't matter to them.
Absolutely. Right, move on to another one. We have got time. Already thinking about getting away, are we?
I know, this is really amazing because it's getting me out of the headset of thinking that there's actual sort of like weird gritty ice on the ground as we speak, because we're thinking about our holidays when it's a bit more sunny. More tourists in Britain are now going to go on city breaks with lots of those famous lovely cities like Prague and Copenhagen and Venice and Athens and Barcelona going up the charts. It's very interesting, though, because it doesn't mean that they're taking long-haul, long-term flights. It's very Bridget Jones. You know, when Bridget Jones goes on a mini break, that's what Brits are doing. And they're saying that the reason is mainly sort of food, drink, having that sense of escape and going and seeing a new city and just getting a taste of culture.
Getting away for a little bit.
Getting away for a little bit and probably having fantasies of, like, if I had all the money and time in the world, I would live here.
I could probably live here.
I'd live here.
I could probably do this.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it actually shows a sense of confidence because post-COVID, post-Brexit, there's been a little bit of a slump in spending, but also just in enjoying oneself.
OK. Abinisha, Claire, we'll come back to you for more in the next hour of the programme. Do stay with us. There's plenty more to come, including your headlines at the top of the hour.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?